Today's SBAR activity number 8 is titled Excel for Agribusiness, Inflation in Farming. So let's start. First, we need to understand what inflation is. This is a term used in economics to describe when prices are going up over time. Also, because of inflation, the value of the dollar, also called its purchasing power, reduces every year. So $100 5 years from now cannot buy the same amount of stuff it can buy today. Now let's move on to a different term. We have Consumer Price Index, or better known as CPI, which measures monthly changes in prices paid by consumers in the United States. For last, we have the inflation formula, which is going to be B minus A divided by A times 10, meaning that A is going to be the starting number and B the ending number. Further, I'm going to explain and provide an example so that you can understand how this formula works based on real life numbers. Primero hay que entender la importancia de inflación y qué realmente es. La inflación es un término usado en la economía para describir cuando los precios suben con el tiempo. Debido a la inflación, el valor del dólar, también llamado poder adquisitivo, se reduce cada año. Entonces, $100 dentro de 5 años no pueden comprar la misma cantidad de cosas que pueden comprar hoy. Ahora tenemos un término diferente que es el índice de precios al consumidor, que esto realmente mide los cambios mensuales en los precios pagados por los consumidores en los Estados Unidos. La fórmula para la inflación va a ser B menos A dividido entre A por 100, donde tenemos A que es igual al número inicial y B es el número final. A continuación voy a proveer un ejemplo con números reales para poder entender cómo funciona esta fórmula de inflación. This is an example of inflation. So first, let's pretend that you go today to the groceries store and then spend $100 on groceries. Then you go back in 2 years and buy the same groceries, but now your total is $105. You see an increase in the price, the total price. So you have faced an inflation rate of 5% or $5. So you can calculate this with the given numbers. So we have the inflation formula that I just explained it. First, let's introduce the $105, the total amount that you spent. In this case, if you go in the future, pretending that you go in the future, you're spending $105 minus what you used to spend in the past, which are $100. You divide this by $100 times 100 to convert it into a percentage, and here is going to be 5% of inflation rate. That's how you calculate inflation rates. Un ejemplo de inflación, que supongamos que vas al supermercado y compras $100 en despensa. Luego regresas en 2 años y compras la misma despensa, pero ahora tu total, en vez de ser $100, es $105. Has visto un incremento en tu ticket. Esto se le llama una tasa de inflación. En este caso, te enfrentaste a una tasa de inflación del 5%, lo que equivale a $5. Usando nuestra fórmula de inflación, podemos poner estos números para saber cuánto fue realmente esa tasa de inflación que tuviste durante esos 2 años. Por ejemplo, primero vamos a poner el precio total que viste en el futuro, digamos en los 2 años, que son $105 menos 100, que es lo que tú sueles pagar. Eso lo vas a dividir entre 100 y luego lo vas a multiplicar por 100 para poder generar un porcentaje. Esto va a dar igual a 5%. Este 5% significa la tasa de inflación que enfrentaste en este ejemplo. Now let's move on to agriculture, which is an industry that also faces inflation in many ways. In agriculture, the rate of inflation in recent years has been between 5% and 10%. Of course, this impacts by increasing costs of inputs, equipment, and farmland. As a result, this also impacts consumers by facing higher prices in their food products. Ahora, en el caso de la agricultura, esta es una industria que también enfrenta la inflación de muchas formas. se ha estimado que la tasa de inflación en los últimos años ha estado entre 5% y 10%. Por supuesto, esto impacta ya que aumenta los costos de insumos, equipos y tierras de cultivo. So now let's stop. These are going to be the instructions for the lesson handout. First, we need to open our handout lesson titled Inflation in Farming and then complete the quiz. So once you're finished answering and reviewing the quiz, please download the Excel for Agribusiness case studies and open the Case 9 worksheet. Then start filling in the blank spaces in both tables. As you can see here, these blank spaces, please use the right formulas based on the given prices and inflation rates. Ahora, vamos a detenernos. Estas son las instrucciones para el folleto de lección. Primero vamos a abrir el documento de la lección titulado Inflation in Farming y después vamos a completar el cuestionario. Una vez que termines de responder y revisar el cuestionario, por favor descarga Excel para casos de agronegocios y abre la hoja de trabajo caso número 9. Después completa los espacios en blanco en ambas tablas, como estas de aquí. Y usa las fórmulas correctas basándote en los precios y tasas de inflación demostrados. Okay, so now let's move on to the Excel file, which is the inflation on a 50-acre soybean production field. As you see, we have these open spaces that we need to fill in. So first, let's start with this on seed. So what's the price of this is going to be the actual production cost per acre on seed. So we need to fill in this by multiplying it, this value times. Remember, you need to multiply this times 50, because that's going to be the in this case, it's right here. That's going to be the case of in a 50-acre farm. So we have 3,000 as our value. Now let's move on to diesel, which is pretty much the same. What I'm gonna do just to go faster is to lock this. Remember, F4, this value, enter, and I'm just gonna go down until fertilizer. So Excel is gonna give me the values, the automatic values based on my actual production cost per acre. The total, just a sum of this four total prices. So it's gonna be $6,650. Now that we're done with the inflation in soybean field, let's move to the other table, inflation rates. Let's calculate those rates. Remember that I showed this formula at the beginning. So let's just basically plug in the numbers. Remember that B is the future cost based on inflation. So we have the 41.60. It says minus A, which is going to be the actual production cost. So in this case, we have diesel, it's going to be 40. Remember, let's close parentheses. Here, I'm going to just divide this again by 40, which is going to give me a 4% inflation rate. As you can see, I'm not adding that multiplication of 100 because Excel already recognizes this as percentages. Remember, it says here it's already recognized as percentage, so there's no need of adding that 100 in that formula. Now let's move on to the chemicals, which is pretty much the same, equals this value 18.54 minus, let's go back to the table and find 18. Remember, close it, and then this value divided by, again, 18. So now we have inflation rate of 3%. So we can conclude in this part that diesel increased by 4% of inflation rate, and then the chemicals by a 3%. Now we can finish this section, which is basically just a multiplication of our actual prices. So it's gonna be this times 50. And remember, I can just go again and hit F4, enter, and then just go all the way down and just sum these values. So now the question here is, what's the price difference in 2 years? So it's just basically a subtraction of the future possible number, this, minus the actual cost. So we faced, or the farmer faced, a price difference in 2 years of 234.50. Okay, so this is going to be the case conclusion based on the Excel results. After solving the total actual production price, the total production cost is in 2 years, and the difference between the 2 years, this is going to be the case study conclusion. The farmer has an actual cost of 6,650 if he farms the 50 acres of soybeans. After using the provided inflation rates, in 2 years from now, his total cost will increase by, now it's going to be 6,884.50, having a difference between year 1 and 3 of 234.50. Esta será la conclusión del caso basado en los resultados de Excel. Después de haber resuelto el precio actual, total actual de producción, el costo total de producción en 2 años y la diferencia entre los 2 años, esta será la conclusión del caso. Primero, el agricultor tiene un costo total de 6.650 si es que llega a cultivar los 50 acres de soya. Como puedes ver en esta tabla, lo demuestra. Después de usar las tasas de inflación que resolvimos y aparte que nos proporcionaron, dentro de 2 años su costo total será de 6.884, como puedes ver aquí. Ahora la diferencia entre el año 1 y el año 3 será de 234.50, que demuestra en esta sección, que es la diferencia entre esos 2 años. Como conclusión podemos decir que con esas tasas de inflación, el agricultor verá un incremento en su costo total.